My name's Joan Milton and I'm going to show you how to make an interior sprung cushion, the ultimate in cushions. I've been asked many times by my students and customers how these cushions are made. There are several finishes, but the ultimate cushion as it was originally made is how we're going to do it today. This is an interior sprung unit. The units that we sell are specially made for us and they measure approximately 22 by 17.5 inches. And as I say, either a 4-inch or a 3-inch depth. Next, we're going to make a calico cover. I always use a fire retardant calico, which is just a precaution that's useful to use. If you knew you were going to use a non-FR cover, you could in fact use a Source 5 barrier cloth, which would ensure then that you've met fire regulations on your without an FR cover, although that will depend on the content of the cover. So my finished cushion is to be 22 by 20 inches. So I'm going to need a 1/2 inch seam allowance on all this, so I'm going to cut 23 by 21 inches. As it's calico, the thread count ensures that this is square. It may look distorted, but I'll be able to put it square. So I'm not going to cut this with scissors. I'm actually going to tear it to ensure I get a square piece. And then I'm going to measure it from this way to make sure I'm tearing off. This way I've actually measured my 21 inches, so this way I'll actually measure my 23 inches. And again, I'm tearing it to make sure it's square. I'll do 2 pieces like that, which will give me the top and bottom of my box cushion. Next, I need the boxing, the bit that goes around the edge. And as I want it to end up 4 inches deep, I'm actually going to cut this 5 inches, which will give me a 1/2 inch seam allowance top and bottom. Again, that will give me a perfectly straight piece of fabric around there. Now this calico is 60 inches wide. I'm going to need about 88 inches to go all the way around my cushion. So I'm going to take 2 pieces off. Next, I'll need to be sewing these pieces together, which I'll do on a sewing machine. Basically, I'll be taking one of my tops or bottoms and I can pin this together using... I've got a 1/2 inch seam allowance is what I've allowed, so I'll need to make sure that that is actually on the corner, otherwise I'll have rounded corners. If I cut into that, it will then twist around where my pin is and give me a perfectly square corner. And when I sew that on the machine, I'll use a similar sort of method. So I'll now go away, I'll sew that all the way round. At some point I'll need to join this to that, so I'll probably, you can do it as you go, or I can sew it up in advance and seam across there, and continue all the way round. Now I'm going to sew this boxing on to one side, either the top or the bottom, doesn't matter which, because they're identical. I'm not going to start from the very beginning because this has got to be joined on to the other end when I finally get there. So remember, we've got this cut corner, which is our point, our turning point, and you want to make sure that your needle is in the work when you turn the corner. Raise the foot and turn. If you don't want to do a sharp corner, you can turn part way, put one stitch in, turn it around, and then carry on sewing, and so forth all the way round. As you can see, we've gone round the last corner and we're meeting our second piece of boxing, which we're going to want to join. And so I'm going to stop sewing at that point, and before we can go any further, we need to join together these two pieces of fabric, and we want to make sure that we haven't got one side of our boxing narrower than the other, and so we need to join them exactly together. That should help if you fold that back following a line there, and then we can pin that on that fold that I've made. Similar way of making any box cushion joining the boxing on any box cushion in the same way. Now what we need to do now is we need to put a lid on this. So we're going to sew on our second piece, our top or bottom, whichever piece is left of our cushion. We're going to sew in one side only and just slightly round the corners. So make sure your corners are going to be in the same place. You can follow a thread and give yourself a marker for your corners to make sure they're actually going to be upright. What you don't want to do is end up, I'm exaggerating with that situation. Because we've pulled our calico on a thread, we should be able to follow a thread to get an exact line up in our corners. So marking our corners, and we can do the same on the other two corners as well, so that we now know that the corner of the top of our box will be the same place as the corner at the bottom of our box. I'm now going to sew on the other side of it, just sewing down one side and slightly into the other one. Before you sew one side of this to the rest of your boxed cushion interior, a little tip is to mark the centres. These have been marked by folding this in half. So you have the centres of your top, the centres of your bottom marked, and the centres of your boxing, as well as, of course, we did the corners earlier. And they can be used to make sure that this part has been sewn on squarely and not slightly skew with. As you can see, I've now sewn one side of the top of my casing. It's been sewn just slightly round the corner on both sides, and it's now like a little lid, and I have a nice box in which to put the inner of my box cushion.